YouTube, hey there, it's Casey Dimon here, TaxSaleAcademy.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoy listening to podcasts, make sure you check out TaxSalePodcast.com where you can listen to this podcast episode on the go. But if you prefer to watch me as I record it, then stick right here. Let me know though by clicking that thumbs up button. And also don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That way you don't miss out on future training videos. Let's go ahead and record that audio podcast right now. Welcome to the Tax Sale Podcast, where tax sale investing is made easy. My name is Casey Dimon. I'm a tax sale veteran, the leading tax sale expert, author of the Tax Sale Playbook, founder of the Tax Sale Academy, and I am your host right here on the Tax Sale Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast episode. This is a completely free podcast, and it's brought to you by the Tax Sale Academy. If you're looking to learn more about investing in tax-defaulted real estate, just head on over to TaxSaleAcademy.com. Again, that's TaxSaleAcademy.com. Today, I am going to pretend that I'm going back in time. I'm going to return to the start of my tax sale career and go over the three primary things that I would have done differently knowing what I do now. To put everything into context, I'm going to recap my history in this business very briefly. So when I started back in 2002, I was a naive kid. My first few years in this business, I did extremely well, and I capitalized on and took advantage of the economy at that time. The economy that I relied so heavily on, the one that I built my business on, however, fell apart after a few years. Then I rebuilt my business from the ground up in a foolproof, recession-proof manner. I went through the extreme highs and the extreme lows and everything in between. I also dabbled in a variety of other disciplines, including brokering real estate, developing real estate, speculative building, property management, and all sorts of other stuff. Tax sale investing, however, has been and will always be my primary business because it is such an incredible business. Okay, so there's the brief story in a nutshell. Let's look back at that 18-year-old kid now starting real estate as a tax sale investor and go over the three things that I would have done differently. And if I had to add a fourth thing on that list, I probably would have told myself to enjoy the full head of hair that I had at that time. But nonetheless, let's go over the other three. The first one, find help. Goodness gracious, Casey, please find help. That's what I would have told myself looking back. I remember walking into that first auction as green as could be, hands literally shaking with fear. I had no idea what I was doing, none. I was far from confident, and I could not gather the nerves to talk to a single person at that auction. At the time, there were no books, no podcasts like this one, no programs, no online training programs. I remember asking the folks at the real estate brokerage I was working at about tax sale investing, and they looked at me like I was some sort of alien. Nobody that I personally knew had any idea about this business. My education, it came from trial and error. It's very, very expensive. Very lengthy process, and it's a very stressful way to learn. I wish I would have had the nerve to ask just one person at that auction for help, to ask one person if I could buy them breakfast. That room had 9 or 10 veterans in it at the time. Names I had heard before I even got into real estate, but I did not have the confidence to simply ask them for advice, help, or suggestions. It's funny, people ask me all the time for help at an auction or for suggestions or advice, and so many of those people actually have no idea that I've dedicated such a huge portion of my life to educating others about this business. I don't think I've ever turned down a conversation or offering a piece of advice when it was asked for somebody that is new to the business. If I could go back, I'd learn much faster not to be quite so timid, to ask for help, to ask for advice. If you're new, please understand, most investors will not mind helping you if you're friendly and you're eager to learn. Ask them for help. Of course, understand they're a very valuable resource and their time is precious to them. So make sure you ask them the appropriate questions. But use other investors. Ask them for help. And if they provide it to you, that's awesome. If they don't, just go on and find the next person. The same can be said for the auction companies, the county offices, local realtors, and anyone else you deal with in this business. If you can use their advice or their help, by all means, embrace it. And likewise, if you have a skill that you can help somebody with, be sure to help them when asked. I can't guarantee it'll mean that you make more money as a tax sale investor, but truthfully, it's just pretty good karma in my opinion. Now, obviously, I have devoted a good portion of my life to educating others about this business. I have hundreds of videos on this topic, over 600 videos on YouTube. And I've got well over 100 episodes on this podcast. And I've got a complete training program set up for you when you register at thetaxselacademy.com. Sign up if you want our help, but by all means, get help. Learn to shorten that learning curve. All right, the second thing that I wish I could have done sooner is expand. My business strategy for buying is simple. I cherry pick the most profitable properties possible based on my personal objectives in the areas that I invest in. Pretty simple, right? Well, the problem is nobody wants to expand. I've told the story where I've driven thousands of miles in 1 month attending in-person auction after auction after auction, which were the only thing offered in this area at the time, not to mention all the drive-bys, rental cars, lousy hotel stays, and shady areas that I had to drive through. But that was after I spent too many years being complacent and staying in that one specific area. Now, if your local market is great and you're killing it, that's fantastic. Stay there as long as you want to. But maybe you add on more of the same, or you get involved in different property types if you want to focus on just one area. Expand somehow though. Now, when it came to my business, it started to fade quickly for me in my local market. So I worked the next county over, then the next state over, then eventually I'm all up and down the East Coast, then the entire country. Before I knew it, I was in 5 states, 10 states, and then even more states. I would research properties like crazy. I would choose the best ones for me. Then I'd go out. I would attend countless auctions every single week, snagging the best ones, cherry picking them. I would sell them off, and I would do it all over again, making money in the process. Expansion was the catalyst to my business growing. You simply can't expect to do the same thing over and over and grow. It does not work like that. Expand. Whatever that means to you specifically, expand and allow your business to grow. Now, the last thing that I would have done is I would have been a lot more creative. And this is a little bit of an odd one here, right? But what I've found over the years is buying and selling real estate is great. And you can earn a fantastic living, an amazing living at it. But if you find your own little angle of sorts, you can earn a fortune with it. I started off just like everybody else. I'd buy real estate for one price, I would sell for more, and I'd make a little bit of money. The problem with this approach is that in some areas, it doesn't work because everybody wants to do that, right? You can't buy it cheap enough to make it worthwhile. After a few years, I began to notice that some of the most successful guys had their own way of doing things. They had their own angle. It could have been a person that was focusing just on one specific subdivision, someone who had just one property type, or another who had just one unique selling strategy they used for everything. So I began to ask myself how I could do it differently. That's not only when I began to expand in market areas, but that's really when I began my quest to leverage the internet. Granted, the internet in the early to mid 2000s isn't anything like it is now, but I remember thinking that I need to leverage this internet thing in order to invest out of area. That eventually led me to creating online buyers lists, digital marketing, using other websites' traffic, and all that kind of stuff. At this point in my career, it's extremely rare for me to do anything related to the so-called conventional way, which is actually changing fairly rapidly. I was kind of ahead of the curve. Now, whether that's your approach or not, that's completely okay. Just understand, you can only grow so much until you begin to look at things differently. At some point, you'll be forced to do it differently. So go ahead, get ahead of your own learning curve, get ahead of your own curve on the way to do things, and take advantage of a different angle. So there are the 3 major things that I would have done differently looking back. I would have gotten help much, much faster. I would have expanded faster, and I would have learned to be creative much sooner in my career. As I sit back and think about my career, I've been extremely fortunate to see the success that I've had in this business. Even more so, I'm extremely grateful that I've had the opportunity to impact so many others and watch my own Academy members see so many successes of their own. Tax sale investing is a phenomenal business when you approach it correctly. So I urge you to apply these 3 concepts to your tax sale business, and most importantly, to learn what you're doing prior to even starting. I truly hope that today's episode has helped you when it comes to starting or growing your tax sale business. We are so very thankful that you take the time to listen to our podcast and we're hopeful that you enjoy it and find it very helpful on your way from where you are right now to this tax sale success that you desire. If you do find it helpful, please consider leaving us some positive feedback on whatever podcasting platform you listen to us on. If we can help you in any way, we would love to be able to provide that assistance for you. There are a number of different links in today's show notes. And then, of course, if you're ready for our complete academy when it comes to tax sale investing, just head on over to taxsaleacademy.com. Again, that's taxsaleacademy.com. Take care and make it a successful day.